My own father, who was very modern thought person, and yet at that point he was afraid of society, and who told me that a person from a Gujarati, a girl from a Gujarati household does not become a journalist. I was very unlike him, but I stuck through. It was not a plan to become a journalist. I didn't fall into it either. It was a plan to study. I love studying. Journalism isn't just about writing. Journalism is about getting the correct perspective, getting the correct news, especially if you work in a newsroom. The authenticity and the accuracy matters more than your writing skills. Don't just base your choice of profession on the fact that you have a flair for language. AI is not a magical wand. It's being fed data and information every single minute. What it has been taught is what it is giving back. So ultimately, the work that you do and the strong piece and a solid piece that you throw out, an AI generated piece is not going to come close to you. So use it for research, but fortify it with yourself. How is AI going to be at a fire when if a fire has broken out somewhere, or a bridge has fallen, or the prime minister is going to make a speech somewhere? AI is not going to be there standing, verifying, getting first-hand accounts, going to authorities, questioning the authorities about certain things that only a journalist can do. Those who don't have the drive and the perseverance, they will not survive in the field.
Hello and welcome to Discover You Career Journeys. I've had the privilege of working with our next guest, Shraddha Kamdar. Even though we were in different departments, she was someone I've always looked up to for her strong values, perseverance, and unwavering commitment to her work. Shraddha has over 23 years of experience in journalism, having worked across a variety of roles. She has been the founder editor of a youth magazine and a senior correspondent and editor with the Times of India's Education Times, among others. After completing her master's degree at Columbia University, she went on to work with the New York Times. Today, this TEDx speaker is the deputy editor at Femina in Mumbai. Shraddha, thank you for being here.
Hi, Nahida. Thank you so much for having me. Please fire away.
Okay, lovely. Now, you've been in journalism for over 2 decades. Today, you're the deputy editor at Femina, one of India's most iconic women's magazine. What does a typical week actually look like for you today?
Oh, very interesting question. So I will tell you for me that because it's a monthly magazine now. Yes, we are India's foremost women's magazine in English. We celebrate 67 years this year. There is no usualness in every week. From week to week, it differs depending on which stage of creation of the magazine we are in. When it is the first week of the creation of the magazine, the team is still writing the stories. I'm also writing the articles, etc., to be sent out to edit. And then those go into edit. So that is a less hectic week for me. And because I'm in charge of basically looking at every single page after it is designed and then arranging the page numbers in terms of which article will go when, how are the sections placed. And there is a whole mathematics to it in the magazine system, because only a certain number of pages can be printed. It's not like Word that you can just add another page and then print it in your printer and add another page and print it in your printer. There's a mathematics to it. So we have to do multiples of 8. Plus, we have to think of left, right, because certain ads can only be placed on the right hand side. And that's a rule in journalism anyway, whether you're in a newspaper or a magazine, that ads need eyeballs, and it's assumed that the eyeballs automatically come from the right hand side of any page. So if you see any newspaper also, there are ads on the left hand side, but they're placed at a lesser value. So then all of that I'm in charge of, which comes closer to the date when we are supposed to send the magazine to the press. So that week becomes extremely hectic. That week, those 10 days. Of course, we have been through the month, we have been working towards all of this. But that week, because of the changes, because of last minute additions of ads, last minute deletions of ads, last minute requests from a lot of departments or our own department to carry certain things or not, that week becomes very, very hectic because it's not, everyone should know that, like, journalism, especially the things that go on print, are not Instagram, is not Twitter, cannot be edited later. So we have multiple checkpoints, multiple people looking at it, at least two, so that we try to be as error free as possible. The pages have to look nice and glossy. So the kind of paper, the kind of printing, the kind of ink that goes into it, and the effort that goes into it. So every picture is also worked upon, not to enhance anything, not photoshopping to enhance or change or alter anything, just to clean up background things, to clean up graininess, to make it look nice and very sharp when it is printed. So this is a process. It's not just clicking a picture on your phone, uploading it on Instagram and putting a caption down. It's not that. There is a timeline to it. And that is the timeline we operate upon. So yeah, that's one week. Like another day could be when we're having edit meetings, we're looking at ideas, we're kind of rehashing our brains to find out what is a newer angle or how can we provide any value addition to ideas. So those are the things. Plus, we have a digital presence. So on Femina's website also we all contribute. So we're writing for Femina's website, we're editing for Femina's website, which is obviously a quicker turnaround and on a daily basis. And yeah, digital is the way to go.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into that area as well. Thank you for sharing that. And let's go back to the beginning, Shraddha. What drew you to journalism in the first place? Was it always a plan, or did you kind of fall into it?
It was not a plan to become a journalist. I didn't fall into it either. It was a plan to study. I love studying. And at the time, all I wanted to do was to study journalism. It was just that.
Yes.
And I know I might sound fossilized to the audience by now if I say that in those days when in Bombay and Mumbai, when we went out to study journalism, there were no undergraduate courses. There were only postgraduate courses, and you had to be a graduate from any stream to do it. There still are postgraduate courses, of course, but for those who know earlier, there is mass media, so they can do it in the undergrad. And all I wanted to was to study it, to know what is going on after I finished my BCom. And simultaneously with doing my MCom, I got into the program and I studied it. And I met a bunch of people who were very serious about it. And I'm also extremely serious about my studies. But I'm also diligent with my work. And that's when I realized that no, it's not just about studying. This can actually be a thing that I want to do. In that interim gap, I was a tutor, so I wanted to be a teacher actually. But once I finished journalism, or once I was doing the program, I was in the program, I thought, no, this is what I want to do. And then that's how I charted my way ahead.
Okay. Now, you started at the Times of India working with Education Times. How did that very early focus on education and journalism shape how you think about stories?
So that was actually, I had a small, very, very short stint with the afternoon.
Okay.
And in that, so that is where we take a point of departure within journalism. A lot of the readers may or may not know that journalism isn't just writing. There are two parts to it. One is the reportage of it, where for a newspaper or a news channel or for breaking news, you are actually on the field and you are getting or collecting the news and you are verifying it and you are being very accurate about what you put out as not to create any sort of unnecessary stir. And the other part is what you read for pleasure, is the journalism that we call as features. So I knew that I wanted to be in features, but I started as a reporter. So that early onset of going out, collecting news, getting people to give you their viewpoints on it was a very, very strong base. And over there too, I was always, like I said, I love studying. I wanted to be in education. The field wasn't as open or as aggressive or as extensive as we have seen it today, because everything has changed with the advent of the smartphone. We didn't have smartphones at the time. In fact, when I studied journalism and even when I joined afternoon, I didn't even have a mobile phone there. So after a few months, it was very, very thought out. It was a process. After a few months of gaining that experience, the only pointed focus was to go and approach Education Times. And I did that. And I was lucky enough that they had an opening, and that's where I started. So that's when the features happened, education features. And that's when I also changed a position from just a reporter to a writer and an editor. So that's when I got the experience of also understanding how pages are made and what are the things that you have to look at post. See, a lot of writers will just write on MS Word or on a WordPad or on Google Doc and send it across. That is their job. But the person who takes over from there, that's the desk person. We call it the desk. And that's also the experience I gained from there. And to this day, I continue doing a role that has both writing, editing, and the desk work.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. Now, I know that for years you've been a visiting faculty member teaching communication theories.
Yes.
What made you want to, however, I know you said that you wanted to initially teach as well, but what made you want to give back in that way alongside this full time editorial career?
It was something that is just in me. Like if I had a chance today, I mean, I'm sure there are many chances, I just can't manage anymore. I would go back to the classroom. I think I'm the happiest when I'm in the classroom facing a bunch of young, bright students. And it was a choice I made when the opportunity arrived. And once the opportunity arrived and I took it, I felt, no, this is really, really nice. So as more and more people approached me, I tried to do as much as possible. There was a variety of subjects in communication, editing, writing, features, writing, introduction to journalism, lots of things. And one of the nicest parts of teaching in many institutes is these are autonomous institutions. So you bring your experience with it, your curriculum with it, and give them hands-on work rather than extremely theoretical or work that is oriented towards exams. So that was a very, very big plus point for me. That was a draw point for me, that this is where the experiences of not just me, but also my colleagues, a lot of my friends, and my knowledge of how to build a program, how to build a curriculum from when I studied at Columbia. I got it all together and use a constructivist approach in the class to bring their knowledge, bring my knowledge, and then create some sort of knowledge together, which would make them ready to go out and face what they have, in store for them on their first day, rather than just focus. I have also taught at places where we had to focus on exams. So we found a way to make that dual focus, that, okay, focus for this exam is ABC. And then post the exam, when you go out for your internship, this is what you focus on. But it was a big drop point. And this is the point where the shift had already happened. Like I told you, there were no undergraduate courses earlier in journalism in Mumbai. This was a point when I started teaching. It was almost a decade later. So there were undergraduate programs available. Plus, there were a lot of postgraduate programs, like I said, autonomous institutions, which really heavily banked on the faculty having a lot of experience in the field.
I
That's what
assume
we
so.
brought.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to talk about something very interesting I recently saw of yours. It was a TEDx talk
Yes.
that you gave, and it was called Impressions from Human Interest Journalism. And I'd love to dig into that. At its heart, what is this concept of human interest journalism, and why do you believe it matters today?
So, human interest journalism has been around for a long time. Let me also go back a little bit and say that there was no, like when journalism started, there was only news, news, news.
Yeah.
And later features were introduced as women's features or tailoring features or cooking features, etc., to get more audiences. So, all these names came later.
Hmm.
Okay, when we had to put it down to paper and say that, okay, what are you teaching, how is the curriculum, and all the names have come much later. The journalism already existed, but these are the stories, these are the articles that we do, which are extremely touching, which have a human angle to it, which move the reader, which probably now nudges the reader to go to Google or any search engine and find out more about the person or the incident. And it's a very, very human angle. It's something that is absolutely touching the core of the person. So that was what, and as a journalist, when I was doing the TEDx talk, the angle was human and human aspects and humanity. And I didn't want to do it just as a person. I wanted to do it as a journalist. So I brought in the aspects of journalism, of human interest journalism, from a few of the interviews that I had done, and brought in the aspects of those people who I had interviewed. And then the learning from all of it and my own experience was the consistency of keeping at it, of keeping at what you wanted. I also put out my own experience over there where I was told by my own father, who was a very modern thought person, and yet at that point he was afraid of society, and who told me that a person from Gujarati, a girl from a Gujarati household does not become a journalist. I was very unlike him, but I stuck through. I stuck through studying. Stuck through getting that first offer, going to work every day. And luckily, he came around, and that's what like. The aim was that. The aim was not to defy, the aim was not to rebel. The aim was like to be consistent with what you want and how you are achieving it. So those things that I had learned from a few of the interviews and then my own experience, that's how I brought together this. But yes, human interest journalism, going back, is also finding like nicer human angles in basically something that would interest a human being,
Mhm.
which is a heart touching story.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that
So
also kind of connects with the work that you're also doing with Femina at this
yes,
point,
yes,
centered on women's lives. So,
absolutely.
the human interest storytelling, kind of the intersection with writing specifically for and about women in India today,
Yes. Yes,
you know.
absolutely. It does connect a lot from the numbers that we have, especially from the website, because we can't really pin the data from the actual print magazine. But yes, these kind of articles, they are being read. They do touch lives. Like, like a woman farmer who's taken up a program of understanding the produce and the seeds better, farming better, because there are rural education programs, and then doing it on her own, or someone who's just coming up with grit and determination. These kind of stories are doing as well as any beauty story that you might look at.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Okay. So over the years, has this kind of story that resonates with readers changed? Are people kind of looking for something different now than they were a decade ago? I mean, yes, they want to know the human angle, but do you feel you've been in this industry for so long? Do you feel like, is there something else? I would think that, connecting with that human angle is obviously sparking a very interesting, conversation here. What about you?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, see, we always feel that people want to read about nicer things, but yes, see, the internet is full now. Journalism in print is limited. There's only that many pages, but the internet is a treasure trove of information. So people are looking at different. See, and it's a vast audience. So different people are looking at different things. Today, people want shorter articles, shorter attention spans. Because of the shorter attention spans, a lot of them consume more video content than they would consume reading content, even if it's short. But yes, at the core of it, it remains the same that a lot of people want answers to their questions or want something that would change their life or affect their life. So, at the heart of it, this remains the same. People want information, but later they also want an analysis or an idea of how this information is going to affect their lives immediately. We can't blame the generation for wanting quick answers and instant gratification. They were born into it. They were born into putting something into Google and finding from there rather than going out and looking at five encyclopedias and meeting a person who's an expert. Somewhere down the line, yes, they will understand why an expert is needed. But yes, they want something that affects their life and they want to know it now.
Hmm.
So they are looking at people need things, people want to read things. At the back end, for us, it has become a game of guessing of what they want
Hmm.
and what is working.
Yeah.
And that's where we rely on digital analytics and getting insights from sites such as Google on what is performing well,
Yeah.
because now performance is numbers. So yes, that is something the profession is dealing with, but it is something that we just have to
Adapt and
taken as a mark of change and adapt to it.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
So I'm switching gears here a little bit, and I want to address the elephant in every newsroom, classroom, and boardroom, and that is AI.
Yes.
As someone who has been in this industry, Shraddha, for over 20 years, what's your honest gut reaction when you see AI generated content? Can you firstly, identify it, and what's your reaction?
See, for us who have been working with the written word for a very, very long time, yes, AI content is quite identifiable. There are markers. There is firstly, it depends on you knowing how people write, how human beings write. And AI doesn't write the same way. The first instinct of a person is to perceive it as a threat or perceive it as something beneath you, to not use it. So saying, how can we do that? But no, we can use it, and we found that you can use it as a tool to ease your work done. I mean, the work that you have to do, and then polish it up. So, what I mean here is, see, any which way when you are researching, when a person is researching, research has changed. From 2003, when I would research something after going to a library or asking a center for access to some of the records and pull out a book and then try to find out what's going on or call someone and find out what's going on, though there was Google, over a period of time, research went online and we had adequate resources online to at least get the information at a click of a button. Now AI is doing the same that we would do, like click on 10 sites and get the information out. Now AI is doing that for us, scanning the sites and getting it for us. So I think it's a matter of trying to work hand in hand rather than defy or use it fully. So, yes, any person who's been dealing with writing and editing for a long time, especially they know how people write and their own people write, and suddenly something so sharp or something so articulate shows up. Of course, it's a telltale sign. There are certain telltale signs other than that that we understand it's AI writing. And we have scanners and checks in place as well that, okay, research, you use it for research, but we want a human perspective over there too. And a lot of people are not understanding that ultimately AI is just throwing back at you what it has been taught by human beings. AI is not a magical wand. It's being fed data and information every single minute, right as we speak, to learn how to identify things, to learn how to identify aspects of things. And what it has been taught is what it is giving back. So ultimately, the work that you do and the strong piece and a solid piece that you throw out is not going to be like an AI generated piece is not going to come close to you. So use it for research,
Yeah.
but fortify it with yourself.
Yeah, which is what I was kind of coming to. Like, there is this big debate about whether AI can ever truly do what a journalist does. And especially if you talk about the human interest storytelling, or, as you rightly said, use AI to, help you research deeper into a specific topic. Um, is there something that AI cannot replicate in this field? I mean, besides the the authenticity, which is very important. I feel like, your story, it's your story.
Yeah.
You can use AI to kind of get that support.
Of course. Like I mentioned in the beginning, there is a point of departure. One is the reportage and one is the desk and features, right? So, how is AI going to be at a fire when if a fire has broken out somewhere or a bridge has fallen or the prime minister is going to make a speech somewhere? AI is not going to be there standing, verifying, getting first-hand accounts, going to authorities, questioning the authorities about certain things that only a journalist can do. And there are so many times while doing research, you're reading a paper in a particular national center. I mean a scientific paper, published paper, you're reading a journal. And then every line gives you an idea that, oh, I could do a story on this, I could do a story on this, I could do a story on this. That is how we have trained our minds to know what story will work and what will not work. It's not AI who's giving us this story. It's the experience that we have that is giving us this story. So, yes, there are very many aspects that AI cannot do. And we should use it, like I said, to our advantage. Like, for example, if someone says that, oh, I use AI for correcting punctuation and grammar, fair enough, do it, do it. There are people who are here and they're copy editors who are doing that, but their copy editors are not just verifying your punctuation and grammar, they're also making your copy better. But if you trust AI fully to doing it, then you don't know whether it is yours or it is AI.
Yeah, yeah,
But like I said, a journalist's job at its core, it's on the field, and AI be covering the war, then we wouldn't have lost the lives of so many journalists over there.
yeah. So
So
true.
it is the person who is present over there and who is covering and bringing you lives, that news, or bringing you at the cost of lives also.
Yeah, I think this is great for our young audience who are, looking at getting into journalism. And this is great advice for them because, AI can definitely write a passable article in seconds, but that actual research, that actual storytelling, that, like we spoke about, the authenticity of,
Yes.
keep writing, keep reading, keep wanting to know. You said something about that in your TEDx talk too, about
Yes.
perseverance. Keep at it.
Hmm.
I know print media has already faced, Shraddha, a lot of disruption from digital.
Yes.
Okay. And now AI is this next wave, as they say. And are you optimistic or worried about the future of journalism as a profession? Yeah, I know we did touch upon it initially about how we can use it, but any of your little tidbits on this part?
See, it's not just about optimism. I would also like to say that it has not gone anywhere. Even during the pandemic, everyone felt that print is failing, print is going south, print is not pulling through or whatever. Yes, it is a challenge right now because see, ultimately, a business needs money to run. It may be have been called a noble profession many years ago, but ultimately everything has a cost attached to it and those costs need to be recovered, and therefore there are these multiple channels that we must adapt to. yes, there is disruption from digital, but why do we look at it as a disruption? Why don't we also join that bandwagon? So there are so many publications today that are only digital, only online, but they are serving great reads. It's great journalism. So it's not that, oh, I will only see the sacrosanctness of a print product. It's not that. We have to adapt to it. So yes, people have taken up to being on a website, on an app, on digital, on basically being purely digital. Yes, now after the disruptions of technology, it is difficult to go back to surviving only with print. It is difficult for the publication to survive, and if the publication doesn't survive, then there is no journalism. So, for the journalism to be there, the publication has to survive, and therefore it has to have these multiple channels. And yes, the profession of journalism, so people getting into journalism also have to adapt themselves that, yes, I should know how to put out a product in print if there is print, or put out a product digitally. What are the changes? Like I mentioned in the first question itself, that I work for a product where there is a process because it goes into print, has to look glossy. It is not instant. But it's the exact opposite when it's going on digital because it's instant. I have to put out the news first. Yes, there is competition in the industry on who broke the news, who put it out first. And yes, the person who put it out second or went up second is going to face some sort of music from the management because why did we go second? So there is a sense of urgency. There is a sense of, immediacy that goes there, but also not compromising on accuracy. So, yes, people have to adapt. It's not about being optimistic, but yes, I feel the profession is still alive. The profession is going to be alive. We have to adapt. So, the students who want to look at journalism as a profession have to change. That is a change skill set from what I had to bring in 2003. Now, there is a change skill set that they have to bring in and they have to understand. And that is also including the additional thing that you spoke about, which is AI. Earlier, before AI, it was just bringing in your skill sets in digital, print plus digital. Now you have to bring in some sort of understanding of AI and how to use it to your advantage. See, for example, you just have to scan something on a PDF and you need a word. Earlier, it was a headache. Or you have to just scan a photograph and get the words out of it. It was a headache, but AI has made it simpler. That kind of thing can work out where we just work together rather than completely abandon it or completely disregard it. But yes, the profession is there. You
Yeah.
have to be more digitally oriented. You have to be more open to working where publications are going more and more digital. So the immediacy is there. You have to start working on it immediately. There was a joke, in the newsroom when back then I was in the newsroom that if something has happened or you are on the road or you are at the police station somewhere, whatever has happened, whatever is the news, and you're getting the news, so I would always say, oh, okay, I can go back, have a cup of tea, and then file my story. But the TV person will be, at that time it was more TV, it wasn't that much the internet, will be like, nahi, nahi, jaake edit karna hai, jaldi, jaldi dal dena hai. So that's the difference now that immediacy has become even more with social media.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
That the sort of,
yeah, you've also touched upon the next career advice and practical takeaways is that, come with this openness to want to learn and be a little
yes.
bit, that's very important. And I think you've trained and mentored a lot of journalists and students over the years. Do you feel like there's a common mistake that you see some young writers make right now? Is there like something that separates who lasts in this field from someone who doesn't? Let's be very frank.
So those are not the language mistakes that will differentiate. The person who lasts is the person who will persevere.
Yeah.
Every day is a new day, and depending on what you choose, depending on news or features and and there are fields in journalism. So the beat that you choose, every day is going to be a new day. Some days will be dull and some days will be super hectic, but you don't know when you come to office what's going on, especially when you work for a publication that is news.
Yeah.
because we don't know what will erupt where, anywhere. A common mistake, because I'll go back to the word writing,
Mm-hmm.
is this is a common mistake for years. It's not just now, it wasn't just back then. A lot of people feel that they want to become journalists because they are good writers or they love writing. So I want to just put it out there that, guys, journalism isn't just about writing. Journalism is about getting the correct perspective, getting the correct news, especially if you work in a newsroom. The authenticity and the accuracy matters more than your writing skills. And then, of course, if you are a great writer and you love writing and editing, you can join the desk position, where also verification is important. And where also it's not just about a flair for language. If you have it, that's really, really nice. But don't just base your choice of profession on the fact that you have a flair for language. If you have a flair for language and you want to do something, I think content writing is a great opportunity. But if you have to do journalism, you have to come with a certain dedication towards what you are putting out there, not
Especially
just for
today, because
clicks.
there's probably, I mean, you need accuracy in the
Yes,
field. I mean, I
yes,
think because there's so much of news that might not be the correct news, uh,
yes,
so you need to have that accuracy. And you're absolutely right on not just writing being the
yes.
skill over
Not
here.
just writing being the skill that drives you to the profession.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have it, it's great. And it's not like the profession doesn't need writing skills. Of course, it needs writing skill. Anything dull will have a person move on in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like today, really, the audience doesn't have the patience of even 2 seconds. You have to hold them within those 2 seconds. If you are dull, it's going to be bad. But if you're becoming a journalist, it's not the only skill that should drive you, is all I'm saying. And the other mistakes, of course, lots of times still I see texting language and lingo comes into our papers. I've had to correct papers where students have forgotten to write YOU because they have written only the letter U. I mean, we make it mandatory. It's there is a language, and the language has a rule for a reason. And I'm talking about any language. There could be someone who wants to become a regional journalist. There could be someone who wants to become a journalist in any Indian language. That's fine, but follow the rules of that language. Then you don't have to come into slang. That's not journalism. That is, yes, you're making videos, and that is peak, so to say, for getting likes and clicks, but that is not journalism. So, yeah, as you grow into the profession, you understand the importance of language, but you also understand, like I said, importance of bringing voices and getting the correct voices out to the reader.
Amazing. Yeah. I tell a lot of students to write emails to me rather than sending me messages. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that I really encourage a lot of the young students to do, because they also send emails with just attachments and then send it to me. And I ask them, I said, this is your initial training. I don't think you'll probably get it anywhere else, but
Yes,
you have to address the person and then you have to thank the person. It's just, I think it's just the etiquette
absolutely.
that comes into play here, you know.
Etiquette and habits. Habits,
Yes.
like now they are into sending stickers on WhatsApp.
Yes.
So you are slowly and gradually losing out on words of reaction. First, it was emojis, like what was it called now? Face palm. Like this is something we've human beings have been doing for years on an
Yes.
end, and it just borders on exasperation on something. But now it's just that emoji that comes to you, and now they are on stickers. So each time you send something like that, you are compromising on language. If your profession doesn't deal with language, and you're a coder and you're a computer programmer, or you're a dancer and you
Yeah.
don't care about language, do it.
Yeah.
But if you are entering a profession where language is very important, try to change it. Try to change how you communicate with people, especially when you do it in writing or in texting, and see if that changes that habit changes how you approach your work.
Yeah. One thing, Shraddha, that stayed constant about good journalism, no matter how much the industry changes, what is your, one thing you feel that stayed constant?
It is that, that drive.
Mm.
of the person, the new people who come in, that drive that they really want to put out a particular story. And this, I'm focusing more and more on news, not on features, because see, features give you a certain relaxation. It is an add on, but news is important. So the drive of the people who come in, those who don't have the drive and the perseverance, they will not survive in the field. There are many who have left and gone into corporate. There are many who have left and gone into content. But it's that drive to be on the field, to chase that one particular story. I still remember as a young person, and we have, the field is replete with such stories, okay? That as a young girl had gone to the suburb of Borivali in Mumbai to look for someone, and she couldn't find the building where that address was provided to her. And she went to the post office. She first figured where the post office was. She went to the post office and asked the postmaster where the building was. And then got into the building, and then, however, that progress for her. So it's sometimes you are on a wild goose chase, sometimes you make progress, but to think that way of how to do. We've had people, we've had a picture of a doctor from somewhere, and we want to connect with the doctor. And there was a banner behind the doctor, and that banner had numbers, and we called, okay, that's an easier one than the previous one. But there the field is replete with such stories internationally and nationally. Like, and we also know investigative journalism. I mean, if I'm openly asking people, please watch Spotlight. It's an Oscar winning movie that focuses on investigative journalism, one of the finest movies. Okay. And how they missed and how it came out and everything. But investigative journalism, we've had people who've gone and lived and stayed and been in disguise to get the story. That drive is going nowhere. That drive is essential, and that drive has stayed constant. And that drive is what is bringing you things every morning, not sitting in front of a computer every morning and opening your computer. And there is
Which
the
sounds
article has
really,
come from somewhere.
yeah, but it's also, I think, in so many ways, I think when you look at journalism and you watch someone into journalism today, I think everybody's also getting very excited and they're not hearing the actual part of there is a lot that goes to, reporting. You have to, like you said, the disguise. And even if someone is trying to kind of look at a crossroads, like, transition, like you rightly said, they need that dedication and they need that passion to kind of keep coming back to your word, perseverance of wanting, like
Yes.
like you've done
Yes.
through. I mean, you've kept at it and kept at it and kept at it, and I've seen it firsthand, and you've kept at it to kind of just be like, okay, you know what, I just still want to keep doing this.
Yes. And I'm not talking just of, like, okay, until now I was talking about very serious journalism, but if you read some, there are books out there for journalists who have won the Ramnath Goenka Award for journalism. And there are people who are chasing, say, film stories. They're chasing film stars. And the first three times they go to meet the person, and of course, I'm talking about pre entourage and pre manager will be there, but pre entourage days and pre PR days, the first three meetings have led to nothing. She's just standing outside the van, the vanity van of the star, and not having met, but still persevered. I still remember a friend of mine chased a star. He went, took an overnight train to the city where the star was shooting, and then interviewed the person over there. He wasn't even like, these are not stories that you are chasing because they are time bound or they're news. These are things you want because these are very integral to you and your publication. So it's a lot of things. Everything doesn't come from the fingertips, is what I'm saying. Yes, it's a great gadget. I'm not saying no. It's beautiful. Our lives run on it. Tomorrow, if my phone conks off, I'll be handicapped. I'm not denying the importance of it, the connectivity it provides, but everything doesn't come out of it. And that drive has not gone anywhere either. That drive is there. And especially among youngsters, when they come, and those who are very serious about the profession, and when they come and they want to do things, that drive is there. And
Yeah,
those are the ones who go to become seniors in the field and who stay.
yeah. um Shraddha, any final thoughts or a message that you'd like to leave with our audience today?
Yes, I think the final thought on this is that don't think the profession is dead, but also when you enter it, or if you're trying to enter it, think of what you want and how you are shaping your skills for it. Of course, a program will shape your skills, but what is it that you want? Don't enter a wrong profession because you just liked something at some remote moment somewhere. Every profession requires hard work, and so does this one. And don't make AI your enemy, but befriend and understand how to use it better rather than just using it as an easy way out. Somewhere sooner or later, you're going to get in a problematic situation if you just use it for the easy way out.
Yeah, yeah. Where can people follow your work, Shraddha, or reach out to you if you have any young followers? I'm sure there will. I mean, I'd love to share some of your work. I am going to share the TEDx talk, and I think that's a remarkable, your journey and just talking. And it was something that I learned a lot about you in that talk. But anywhere that people can follow you?
The work is out there almost,
Yes.
all the work is out there on femina.in. But other things and otherwhere they can follow on Instagram. Instagram, I'm at kamdar.shraddha.
Okay.
And that's simple surname dot name. And that's where I'll be able to respond if anyone has something to say.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for taking the time out, Shraddha, on this busy day. And I know you have to get back, but to our viewers, we really hope you found this conversation insightful. Stay tuned for more episodes of Discover You Career Journeys, where we aim to bring you inspiring stories. Thank you. At the end of each career journey, we bring you the key learnings from our conversations with our guests. Shraddha's journey challenged one of the biggest misconceptions about journalism, that it's primarily a career for people who love writing. In reality, writing is only one part of the job. The profession demands curiosity, critical thinking, meticulous verification, and a deep sense of responsibility to ensure every story is accurate, authentic, and fair. She also reminded us that a strong foundation in journalism comes from reporting. Being on the ground, asking questions, and verifying facts teaches you skills that stay with you throughout your career. Another important takeaway was that human interest stories never go out of style. While platforms and formats continue to change, stories that genuinely connect with people will always matter. When it comes to AI, Shraddha's perspective was clear. Don't treat it as your competition, treat it as your tool. Use it to research faster, but strengthen every piece of work with your own thinking, judgment, and perspective. She also explained why AI can never replace the core of journalism. It can't be at the scene of an event, question authorities, verify information firsthand, or recognize a story through lived experiences. Her career is also proof that print isn't dead, but adaptation is essential. Today's journalists need to be comfortable working across print, digital, and AI-assisted workflows. And finally, perhaps the most universal lesson from our conversation, perseverance. Perseverance is what separates the people who last in the field from those who don't. Thank you for watching this inspiring conversation on Discover You Career Journeys. If you've enjoyed this chat, hit the like button and let me know in the comment section which part of today's story inspired you most. And if you have questions about your own career or want to hear from people in a specific industry, drop those suggestions below as well. Don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new career journey. It may just be the inspiration you were looking for. Until next time, stay happy.